Hi, welcome back to Waking Up with Mindful Serenity. We're going to continue answering questions from the jar. I did pull out a question a few minutes, excuse me, bit of a cold. I'm trying to get over it. I did pull out a question a few minutes ago and got interrupted, so I had to stop. But I would like to continue with that question. And the question I pulled out was, how shall we answer the question, who am I? How should we answer the question, who am I? And I'm going to take a deep breath and exhale. How should we answer the question, who am I? And I think this individual is referring to in meditation, in the direct path of realization that Maharishi spoke and taught about. We are to ask the question, who am I? So we reflect on that. How do we answer it? I think the idea is not to answer it. It's a rhetorical question that allows you to explore and get deeper into the mystery of who you are. It is not a question to be answered. And I think if we try to answer it, what we're going to do is just defeat the purpose of realization, because we're going to get the mind involved, and the conceptual mind will always want to come up with ideas and notions and belief systems and conditioning to explain who we are. And who we are, of course, is beyond all that. It is inexplicable who we are. It cannot be condensed and articulated into a few words or a few ideas or a few concepts. So when we ask the question, who am I, it is totally a rhetorical question that is not meant to be answered with words and ideas. Does that make sense? I think we could ask, who am I not? And we could do that, and maybe not so much in that realm of reflection when we're that deep in meditation, but we can ask that on a daily basis, who am I not? And we can start to realize who we are not. We are not the bodies we are in. These bodies, which are only 99.9% space and only 0.1% matter, so we think this is such a materialistic world, but even when we look at all the material forms around us, they are 99.9% space. What is in that space? What is that space? That can help us to deepen our reflection too when we start asking those questions. So we are not the body. We are not the personality we believe we are, which is the psyche. And the psyche, according to B.F. Skinner, is just, the sum of all our learned events. It is how we process life and what we stuffed and stored inside us in relation to what we experienced, and how we identify ourselves based on those experiences. What we did, what we didn't do, what we had, what we didn't have, where we were, where we weren't, all these beliefs and dogmas and ideations that we've collected over the years form our psyche, but they're not who we are. We are beyond the thinking mind. That's why we cannot answer the question, who am I? That's why it remains a rhetorical question. So we're not the body, not the personality, not the mind. And the mind can be broken up into several different components. It can be the intellectual mind that allows us to rationalize and make sense of the environment. The mind can also be divided into the personal mind, this little me's mind, what I use of this great mind in order to, travel around on earth and do what I am here to do and all that. So personal mind, of course, is only a small segment of the universal mind, the mind that is beyond the form. So most of us think of ourselves as these little individual selves, these little individual, separated by body lines with a little personality and a personal mind. And the world's all about how it can serve us. And we focus on this me and the drama it goes through. And, and we fail to see what's on the periphery of our experience, because we're so focused on the drama of little me that we fail to see that there's beings here and beings here. And we do recognize them, and we do experience them, as long as we experience them through how they affect us, and how they impact our lives. But in the grand scheme of things, our me-ness keeps us from experiencing humanity at large, that we are just one small ripple in a mighty ocean of humanity. We are one small ripple in the mighty ocean of beingness. And there's so many beings outside of humanity that inhabit this planet and inhabit our experiences, if we open our eyes to see them. And that's just those of physical form. And of course, if we get really existential, we can go beyond the physical form and say, well, what is there around me that I cannot see or perceive with my five senses, which are so limited to this human experience, right? The five senses are like our communication system, a spacesuit we wear so that we can make sense of the environment we're in. And they are limited because they're only here to help with our survival as human beings. They're not here to help us answer that question, who am I? They're here just simply to help us get by day to day without croaking or dying. So we ask those questions, and we also ask, who am I as consciousness, which is which is the mind, which is the universal mind, which is this awareness and this essence of everything that underlies everything. And it's been called so many different things by so many different people in so many different ways. But what is this consciousness that people are talking about? We begin to explore that a little bit. And as we ask these questions, these deeper questions that go beyond, oh my God, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or how am I going to cope with this? Or why is this always happening to me? And all that. When we get beyond those superficial questions to the deeper questions, the existential questions, the questions about life, the questions about our purpose here in life, about, we expand our very narrow focus around us, and it gets bigger and bigger. So we're exploring all of the world, all the galaxies, all the universe, and seeing it all in its immensity. And we become tiny, tiny, tiny in it. We start to realize that there's so much more than what this little me has experienced that makes up this life that I am living. And we begin to ask the deeper questions. And as we ask the deeper questions, we don't necessarily get answers that make sense to the human mind, to the intellectual mind. We have the felt experience of asking, of questioning, of getting in touch with something deeper, of experiencing it hopefully someday. And that doesn't involve answers that can be written down or spoken about or articulated in words. Is beyond all that. It's something the human mind probably cannot actually comprehend. So when we're meditating and we're asking the question, who am I think if we do begin to answer it, we're doing the opposite of what that question is intended for. And that question is intended for just to bring us deeper and deeper and deeper into self with a capital S, so that we understand self and realize self at that level, which is way beyond anything the intellectual mind can articulate or understand. Wow, that was a ramble. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have an amazing day. Namaste.